These are 5 shot types for street photography that you can use if you're like me and you head out and sometimes you're not always sure what to start shooting straight away. Shot type number 1 is street portraits. The first thing I think of when I'm shooting a street portrait is my aperture. I tend to have my aperture quite low and quite shallow. f1.8, f2.8, f3.5 is probably the maximum I will go to. I really want to have that portrait sharp and in focus, but most of the time I want to isolate that subject and make them stand out. So the background being blurred is really important. Once I've got my aperture set, I'm going to find a place that's got some really cool, strong kind of compositional elements to it, whether that be a long street with leading lines, an archway or a doorway or something that I can frame my subject in. Then I'll camp out there and I'll wait for someone to come into the frame and snap the shot. Shot type number 2 is motion photos. Now there's 2 main types of motion photos. There's like environmental motion, which is like panning shots and things like that, where your subject is perfectly in focus and the whole background, the whole scene aside from that is blurred. And then there's subject motion, which is where the subject of your image is the thing that you're capturing moving. Now this is all about shutter speed. For panning shots, I tend to sit around like 1/15th to 1/30th of a second, and I'll pan with the subject as it comes past me. That way I can try and capture them in frame whilst adding some motion to the rest of the image. For subject motion, it kind of depends on the subject. You can slow your shutter down to like 1/8 of a second, put it on a tripod, and a bus going past is going to look really nice and blurry. Set your shutter speed to a lot longer, 10, 20, 30 seconds, and especially at night you can capture some really cool light trails. This is a really cool, easy way to get some motion photos. Shot type 3 is buildings and environments. Now for these, I tend to use a higher aperture because I want more of the building sharp and in focus. So I'll have a lower shutter speed and a higher aperture because I'm not worried about the building going anywhere. Adding foreground interest is a really good way of taking a wide photo of a building and adding some depth to that image. Whether that's something in the foreground or shooting through something. Really simple but really effective. You can block the frame as well, so for some shots I'll have like an archway and it'll be half in the image and then the actual building will be on the other side of that image. That way it kind of creates a frame within the image. Another thing is you don't always have to shoot the entirety of the building. Being selective with your framing and looking for patterns and shapes can be a really cool way to make your images more versatile. Shot type 4 is lookups. Now a lot of people don't necessarily always look up when they're out shooting, and it's something that I really think that people should do more, and I try and push myself to do way more often. Now it doesn't have to be the entire building, you don't always need skyscrapers, but having a different vantage point can really bring out something that you didn't see before, even in a building you might have shot 100 times. Now for these kind of shots, it's the same as my building photos where I'll use a higher aperture and a lower shutter speed. Sometimes just using your mobile phone can be really helpful. Normally on a phone you've got a fairly good camera, but more importantly, it's going to keep a lot of your image in focus. Shot type 5 is night shots. Now I know this might seem a little bit off because it's a little bit different, but getting out at night and getting the same photos that you got that day are going to give you really different results. The first thing is to train yourself to look for artificial light, whether that be a shop window, vehicles, street lights. Artificial light at night, especially if you're in a town, is literally everywhere. With nighttime street photography, try and get out when it's raining or when the weather's not so good. All of that artificial light's going to hit the ground, hit surfaces, and it's going to be really reflective and add so much more to your images. Another thing to try as well, if you can, is pop a diffusion filter onto your lens, and this will create highlights around those light sources. This is really cool for like spotting patterns in light and just using them as the subject of the image. That's my 5 shot types to go out and try. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and if you want to see some night photography, like in action, this video is literally just night photography. That's all it is, just me wandering around at night with a camera and a wide lens, capturing photos like I do often.